there's more people coming up, I can kind of introduce and kind of also tell you about some of the activities that will be happening in the next couple weeks up here at Chik-Wauk. My name is Bonnie Schutte, and I'm the campus director here at Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center. Thank you all for coming today. We greatly appreciate it. Your support helps us with continuing these presentations. Obviously, everybody wants to learn about loons, and we have Mark Ellis here, a loon photographer that's going to be doing a wonderful presentation. But before that, we definitely want to put a big shout out to our sponsors, which is Visit Cook County and the Gunflint Trail Association. Without their help and support, none of these presentations would take place. If you have a chance to go on to the gunflinthistory.org website, we have a calendar events page there. And you will see that Saturdays of September are all full with presentations. We have a geology class that's going to be happening in October. But for the rest of August, we have Mark today, this Saturday. We're going to have Mark Henson, and he is going to talk about the legends of the Gunflint Trail. And that's going to be at a different location. It's going to be over at the Siegel Community Center, and that's going to happen at 1 o'clock. It'll start at 1. No idea how long it's going to go. And he's going to dust off his old projector and carousel and slides. So that's going to be a great presentation. So that'll be Saturday, this Saturday the 30th, at the Siegel Community Center starting at 1. And then Sunday here on the 31st, we have our old-fashioned pie and ice cream social. That'll be noon to 4 o'clock. And so that'll be a good time. We always have a great time when that happens. And it's a fundraiser to help support the daily operations of Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center. So I'm going to have Jody Ellis introduce the speaker today, because I think she's going to be a better talker and explain a little bit more about Mark than I can. So here's Miss Jody.
I just learned I was going to do this convention thing, but I feel pretty confident that I know this guy enough. If you ever want to see somebody that loves loons, it's this guy. He follows them around and watches them and takes down all the details, and he's been doing photography since he was 12, so he's gotten pretty good at that too. And he's got some stories for you.
Okay, here. Well, welcome. There's a lot of loon lovers. We're learning more and more all the time. So great to have you here, and really appreciate it. And thank you to Chik-Wauk for the invite. I've been retired for a few years now from 3M. I was a scientist there for 33 years. And if there's a gap in me presenting, I get a little nervous. Driving in, Jody said, "You're speaking to hundreds of people all the time." And this is loons, so this is easy for me to talk about. So thank you again. Let's see, I gave a talk somewhat similar to this to the National Loon Center in March. I've varied it a bit. There's a lot more we can talk about actually, so I better dive in because it's going to be loon photos overload. I'm going to go through pictures pretty quick and pause on a few with a little bit bigger stories, I think. So this was, 2018. We have a small family cabin in central Minnesota. This was my first day out in the spring that year, and this was right in front of our place, so it was a good sign, good year. So, yep. So, if you ask people what they like about loons, all winter you crave to hear them. And the first few loon calls I hear of the year, it's like it makes the world right again. And so I thought just to start, this is not like an expert talk about loons, but just to impart a little bit about their calls. So the most common call you'll hear is the wail. Loons communicate across bigger distances. A pair will call each other in. If there's a loon on a nest and it's been on there a little long, it'll call to the partner to get some help. And if you want to maybe play the wail. Oh, you gotta, there you go. Just click on that. Yeah, this week. Oops. There you go. everybody's heard that, right? Main call. So both males and females make that call, and even 1-month-old chicks can start making that sound. So I'll show you a photo of a chick and a parent making the call, so you kind of know what they look like doing that later on. So the next call. We all heard that. Only males make this sound. And I didn't know that right away. And so when I would be following loons on a lake, I don't have banded loons that I've been around until I heard that sound. When you hear it, the male's usually a little bit bigger, maybe 20% bigger. If they do that sound, that's the male. That helps. All right, so this one was 2020, and I'm going to come back to 2020 a lot. It's kind of a banner year for my loon following. This was the third day on the lake with the chicks, and I went out pretty early for me. I guess I'm turning into a morning person. I don't know why. Getting older, maybe. If I got stuff to do, I don't go back to bed. That's not so early, but anyway, I was out. I think the chicks came near my boat, but they know my boat. It took a few years. If I'm out in the same boat, they're okay, and I'll explain more about that. They have used it for shelter. There's too many other boats are around. Well, here, to my amazement, they came right to the boat, and I didn't want to startle them, but I did manage to get up my cell phone to capture this. But the purpose here is to show what a hoot sounds like from the adults, and they never show what babies sound like, but I can hear it, so. So that's hoot. These squeaks are the babies. And they do that sound to beg for food. Talk about close.
Yeah.
So they're not stressed.
No.
I just stayed still. Look at the feet.
Looks like one is larger, Mark. Is that
You
supposed to
are
be
correct.
male?
I'll talk about that, yeah. Well, that's that. That was one of the most amazing things I've had ever had happen with a loon.
Wow.
All right, now I have a quiz for you. So you've heard a whale and the yodel. So if you hear those, just call out when you hear it. They're going to be coming by. A little ways in, you'll hear a tremolo. And that is a call. So the yodel, actually, the males do it as a territorial warning to humans or other animals. If an eagle flies over, pay attention to that. They're getting upset. The tremolo is similar, but both males and females do it. So if you're out on the lake and you hear loons start that sound, the first thing I do is I look up, because it's probably an eagle. For some reason, when they fly over a lake, they make that sound too. I don't know why they do that while they're flying. So here's the quiz. So this is on Seagull Lake a few years back, about after 10 p.m. and it was still the glow, amazing. And then the second, so the loon is the official state bird of Minnesota. At the very end, the second state bird, you'll see them flying around. So we've heard that too. So those are the main sounds. So this is my official loon training. The rest is stories. Yeah. So again, when you start hearing that at night, the world is good again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Seems like sometimes the whale has an extra note in it instead of just low, high, low.
Yeah.
Low, medium, high, low.
So I have just learned they're unique, and I think across different lakes and areas they'll sound different. And I don't know loon language fully. That might mean something to them. There's one out here on Seagull Lake. Sounds a little hoarse, and maybe it's a really old loon. I don't know. But when the juveniles do it, it's kind of scratchy. But it's cool.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
The Chumalo, so I've named my consultancy Chumalo.
Cool.
It also means announcing their presence over their territory, so
Ah.
that's when you can hear it. And sometimes the pair will call back to each other.
Okay.
Can you repeat?
Oh, it's if you want it. I want to get it right.
It can mean three things. Usually it's a territory call, but it also can mean they're signaling their presence when they're coming over their territory.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the pair will use it to call back to each other if they're feeling threatened.
Yeah.
It sounds to me almost like request clearance for landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But this will come up too. When they're flying over, and if there's chicks on the lake, they're not welcome. So I think it helps them to hide their chicks. They'll put them usually in the weeds on the shore and then go out to confront the intruder. So I'll have more about that later. All right, so at age 12, I got a really nice gift from my parents, a camera. And so that, I didn't realize with this, I am 12 years old by that tag there. My grandparents had a cabin where I started taking nature photos. But as a young kid, kids are creative, curious, they're not scared to try things. These are things these photos I'm proud of if I took them today, but I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
That was at the state fair in the grandstands, and I just tried it. It was on film, and I paid for my developing, so I still have a hard time taking a million photos. I gotta hold the button down. So that was my start. Because I had the camera, and my grandfather had a enlarger, so I set up a black and white darkroom at home. So maybe go back one if you could. This one I enlarged in the darkroom. That was our family dog at the time. But analyzing it back, it's so depends on what you're trying to do. But if you're eye to eye with an animal, that gets you kind of more connected with it. I did it naturally. I was just photographing what seemed right. I was went through middle school and high school because I had the camera. I could do it, and I liked working in a darkroom. I was on the school newspaper and the yearbook for all those 6 years, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was practice for everything: sports, candidates, group shots, you name it. So, anybody picking out? You can see me. I didn't wear glasses then. Eventually I worked in a black and white darkroom, and that's my buddy up in the upper right there. He worked there as well. Well, one of my assignments for the yearbook was to photograph people doing their jobs, like Dairy Queen and pet store. Well, I was there, and I said, I'll take your picture. This is your job. And so I made it into the yearbook. The bottom right photo, just as a quick aside, it might be my favorite in the yearbook. I was walking out with my buddy who was right behind him here. He's Jerry Lind. I haven't seen him for a long time. But the guy in the front was the David Bates studio professional photographer that did events. And we were walking up together, and I had my camera in hand, and he says, "Oh, you get a picture of me. Let's see how good you are." And we were in a dark hallway. But I was quick, and that camera is a little different than now. It had that manual focus. I only got one shot, and I didn't know if it worked. But I saw a skylight coming. I set the camera quick, turned around and walked backwards and took it. And sometimes I would develop the film and make my prints, but there I was busy, so I turned it in. Never knew what happened, but it showed up in the yearbook, so I like that. So then I went to college for chemical engineering and put a lot of years getting trained there. After I joined 3M, I didn't do much photography at all. I did some concert photography, but after a joining 3M, if I went on a trip, I would take photos. Usually people would, oh, that's good, and it kind of spurred me on to keep going. Eventually, we stopped another. I bought a nice camera eventually, and I found a workshop that was community education, and I signed up. And again, if things like this can change people's lives. When I went to it, the woman up on the upper right was the teacher, and she is, I haven't been in touch for 25, 30 years with her, whatever 2022 is, 23 years. But she was a really good teacher. She kind of gave out secrets that I thought would be the pro secrets. She didn't care. Maybe what I know now is the super pro secrets, you don't have time to cover those. It takes 30 years to learn a lot of the fine details. But she was a nature photographer, but she's also a scientific illustrator, but also is into conservation. Those birds were through the Raptor Center, and she volunteered there. And so for her workshop, she brought birds in and we practice on them. So I learned a lot of things. One dangerous thing I learned is I bought my first pro level lens from Canon because she said, well, once you use these, you're not going to want to not use it. And they hold their value. So even in 10 years, you can probably get 60, 75%. And I thought, that's it, I'm getting one because it's made sense financially. I've never sold one, I keep using it. So, you know, the better ones, if you want to, the background can be blurred out, which highlights the subject better, stuff like that. So then I went out on my own, and that's the stuff I did kind of over time that was nature-like. Some of it was literally the two tulips right in our backyard. Somewhere along the way, I ended up seeing on public TV it was playing, probably a fundraiser, Jim Brandenburg's Chased by the Light thing. I saw that. It was just super moving, and so I started following this. Eventually along came a notice for a workshop he was having. It was wildly expensive. It's like, man, I could buy a lot of camera gear for that. But as it approached, eventually it was days away. The second I brought it up, Jody says, you're going, right? No, it's really expensive. But as it came closer, it's like 2 days ahead of it, well, just call them. I called. They didn't call back until the next day. And I called her back and I said, they got one spot. Congratulations, you're going. And so here it was Thursday, or probably Thursday, and I left Saturday to go for a week. But Jim was a pretty private guy, and he had it at his house where he took a lot of his world famous photos up by Ely. That's literally in his garden, that picture. That was when we were about done. Very inspiring. The guy, there's no one, I think he's going to eventually be an Ansel Adams type person. This thing's going on. Just so good. Part of the workshop was a friend named Neil Lucas. He just retired from the BBC for after 25 years, and he was the time-lapse expert at the workshop. I still know, I was in communication with Neil yesterday, as a matter of fact, so we're still in touch. Time-lapse was part of the workshop, and when I read it in the agenda, I just thought, I don't know, I never thought of doing that. You know, I didn't, well, part of it, Neil got me in trouble. He did a time-lapse of the stars, and I thought that was so darn cool, so I started doing that on my own. I made a personal project, and I started sending my edits to Neil, which literally felt like I was playing guitar, making recordings, and sending them to Eric Clapton or something. Literally, it's that big of a step. He, just to give his background, he worked for BBC and worked on the Planet Earth series, and he was a producer on 2 of the Life episode series. And he pretty much invented the techniques they used for time-lapse in the early days on planets. So through all of that, I just got inspired. It was off the charts amazing. So thank you, Jody. And I gotta be careful what I say I'm thinking of, because it's like, well, just do it. So I gotta be careful. So otherwise I'll come home and find something new sitting there. So in 2008, we repurchased the family cabin that I went to and did nature photography. That workshop was in 2010. And while we were there, we did loon photos, and I thought, loons, we got those, no big deal. Well, I started going out photographing. So the next, we can move on. I don't want to go too long. So I got more and more involved. I did time lapses. We purchased out here, opened up a whole new area of animals, moose. My time lapses were started getting found amazingly to me by researchers for the BBC and the Bell Museum. And my time lapses have made it to places I never would guess. If you go to the Bell Museum and you go to the moose diorama, which is based on a scene on Gunfoot Lake, if you go to Ask the Expert area, that scene was taken at the intersection of Seal Lake Road and the Gunfoot Trail. They used it. So I've done now, and then based on the loon photos. After a while, I had a lot of loon photos. I started going out in about 2010, and I go every year. I still go out. I got better, and I started. We'll find out. I think 2021 was the first year I made a calendar. All profits go to the National Loon Center. I'm still doing it. So now I'm going to get just a little technical, but this is not a technical talk because I don't have time. I'd rather focus on the stories. And, just by me doing this, I've learned a lot about loons. And so hopefully I can convey some of that. My boat is there. This is on the lake that's the family cabin, sort of near the Brainerd Lakes area. Jody made the photo. It's right in front of her cabin. The cameras I use are shown on the right. That one lens is huge, very expensive, but my photos got better, but the lens is really hard to use. It's heavy. If the loons come too close, I can't get them. I would say use what you got. Just go out and your cell phone can get good photos. So start, you keep going, there's no end to what you can buy. I'm terrified to go online. Okay. All right. So over the years, what I learned is if you go out by loons and they start to recognize you and you don't do bad stuff to them, they come nearer to you. Sometimes even if they don't know you, they'll pop out right at your boat. If that happens, don't tear off. Wait till they leave. Be quiet. Don't startle them. Definitely don't feed them. Because if you do that, they'll expect food from boats. That's a bad combination. So when I go out, I've been out enough. So actually, if they act because you're there, you're too close. So if they dive, you got too close. If they start doing yodels, you're way too close. That kind of thing. So give them space. You're supposed to stay within 200 feet of them. But if you do that, eventually they know you're not a threat and they'll come closer. That's how I've gotten some of the photos you're about to see. So if they come close, be very careful, don't startle them. If I'm out, especially with babies or anywhere near a nest, I don't stay very long because they're watching you the whole time. Then they're not watching enough to other things, so I'm pretty careful about that. Eventually I started posting weekly when there were the first chicks that happened, and I would try to catch them every week. If I missed a week on Facebook, the lake residents at the other lake, how's the babies? Are they okay? And that's a good sign. And then you don't even need to take your camera. It's enough to be out there. Next slide. If you take a picture of this, I can't go over it all, but basically the first thing is take time just to learn the behavior. So like an example, I've learned if there's a loon that you might want to catch if it's trying to take off, if the wind, they'll fly into the wind. So you go to the other side because we're going to take off and come past you. Just simple things like that.
Is it okay to take a photo of it?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's see, and you don't need crazy expensive gear. The thing that I learned with my manual camera in the early days, I had to know what I was doing. You don't even know if you're getting pictures that work while you're taking pictures. You have to focus. You gotta set the aperture. Now with a cell phone, they're better than the best pro cameras that, probably 25 years ago. It's amazing. So one of the things I've then eventually learned is I do preset the camera for what's out there. There's one picture I did super on purpose, because it was the first day out one year. You'll see it come by. I'll point it out. There was 2 loons, which were, I think, the resident pair and a third, which was an intruder. But they were backlit by the sun if I went in on the right proper side. I've never gotten a good picture of a loon right at takeoff, and so I set it for the backlighting. I did everything, and to my amazement, it did. It ran right past my boat. If it was any closer, it wouldn't fit with that lens. And I'll show you that one soon. So let's see. It's best, I really like going out in the morning because the lake's usually still and night getting nice reflections. You can go midday, not to say you can't get good photos, but sunset's also nice. If it's straight up in the air, it's really contrasty, and you don't see depth because the shadows aren't very good. Down here is what I usually set it at. And then I usually try to get the eye in the sharpest focus, because that's what people look for. You don't always have to do, all these rules are meant to be broken, but 99% of the time you want the eye in good focus. And what I would do is I'd look at a lot of loon photos. And after a while, you see, I'm only showing photos I've taken in the last 5, 8 years, and I've been at it a lot longer than that, so I got better. You can get really lucky, but your success rate goes up if you keep working hard at it. And honestly, my whole photography got better from doing loons. As you keep redoing it, you get faster at focusing, you get faster at predicting what might happen, faster at holding, more successful holding a huge lens and getting stuff in focus. So I would go on YouTube. Even if you take workshops, it's really hard to go into a lot of detail. YouTube has lessons on fixing your car, your house, you name it. So there's plenty of information there. And a lot of information about loons too. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention. There is a baby loon there. So here was my first calendar. And what I did at the Loon Center, because it was the Loon Center, I showed every calendar and put them in the order of the months. Here I rearranged it to show what happens through a summer with loons. So we can just click through it, but yeah, I really like, so here's the one that I prepped for. That was, that one, I don't know if you know Lane Kennedy. I've had 2 workshops with him, really inspiring guy. And he liked that photo and I posted it on Facebook. And I was at a workshop and he didn't fully remember it, but I showed it to him and he's like, any pro that wants to help you, they'll try to recrop it. He said, you can improve this one. And wow, he has it in his house. Yeah, I really like it. The best time, the funnest time is when the babies are a few weeks old or less. That's with the big lens. So this one is the latest. There is a sad part of this. So that loon, the Lake Association president texted me that Monday or Tuesday morning. I was in St. Paul. I was there about 4 hours later on the water with that baby and the parents. That's some really nice photos that I left the next morning. A massive storm tail came, took the baby. Yep. So nature's tough. This is one I got this year on that same lake. And so this calendar is done. I just got to pick the pictures. my goal was in about 2 weeks to take the whole calendar. I think I got it. There's a loon monitoring program, which thank Phil, his brainchild. I'm the co-coordinator of it, and there's loons here and loon chicks on that other lake this year. I almost overdid it for 2 weeks straight. All I did was loon pictures between here and there. I think I got enough. That was the very first day after those chicks went on the water at the lake in central Minnesota. So now we go into loon overload. This is, and I even added pictures to tell the stories better in a few places. So I got it in the order that the year progresses. So here's where I start getting some loon, I should call it science. It's just nature of loons. So they return almost instantly after ice out. The same pair, if they survive migration, will come back to the same lake. They don't travel together though. The male will leave first, earlier in the fall, and the female stays. If there's chicks, the female will stay almost to the day the chicks can fly themselves, but leaves a little bit ahead of that. The chicks might stay for about 3 more weeks, and they keep building strength, because they gotta fly somehow over 1,000 miles. No one knows how they even know where to go. It's amazing. Well, that was right after ice out. And again, I think it was my first time out on the lake. I think that's the resident pair. And that's right off our shore. This was on a lake here the day ice out happened. And loons will keep flying north if the lakes are open, but I think they do reconnaissance, the fly. Because reaching a lake as soon as it's ice out, they can claim that territory. Well, on that lake that afternoon, there were 5 or 6, and they were doing all sorts of this dancing around and stuff, trying to show off. It was like they were putting on a show for me. Next one, that was on that same outing. These were tough photos to get. That was past sunset. Next one, more showing off. These all made it to the last year's calendar. There's that one. That got in 2022. After I talked to Lane about that photo, and the next day at the workshop he came in and said, "Do you mind if I give your name to a freelance reporter? He might like to write your story." I'm like, "What story?" "Yeah, do you mind?" And I said, "No, that's okay." So that photo got, and I told the first year that there were chicks, I told that I would go every week, sometimes 2 times. I'd be at 3 a.m. and if it was a Wednesday and my day was done, I'd leave. I'd have 3 hours up and I'd maybe catch sunset, but I'd be there for sunrise and I'd be back at work by 10. And as the year went on, the season went on, anything can happen to the baby. I didn't know if the parents left, the babies left, whatever. So I would get up. And that's, I think, you gotta be kind of loony or crazy to do all that. So the guy interviewed me, an article came out on the Thursday ahead of Thanksgiving weekend, so I had a lot of time for people to look at it. And I talked about my calendar, which I hadn't even started yet. And I started getting notes. Where's your calendar? How do we buy it? Well, then I pulled it together in a couple days, but I took every best photo I ever made because I figured a lot of people would see it, and it did well. The National Center was happy. Oh, so this is not, this one's not early season. This was the 3rd of July that year, 2013. There were no chicks on that lake. We hadn't had chicks for a few years. I happened to be up on July 1st, sitting in my easy chair. I was answering some work emails, even though I was on vacation. But I heard a little ruckus outside, and I already got out in the morning at sunrise, and I was out before the loons woke up. There was one that came out, and I thought, oh, cool, where's the second one? Eventually, the pair showed up behind me from the other shore, so this was an intruder that spent the night sleeping there. They were doing all this dancing around again. Well, around 1 that day, I heard like loon noises, like splashing. I went outside. There was a fight happening. And it turns out it was the 2 males. And it was brutal. I have a couple photos of it. Well, the resident male did not survive. And I could not believe how powerful a loon is. Don't go mess with a loon, especially with the beak in your face. You won't do well. So, and I know it was disappeared because their routine was every day the 2 would come by in the morning and go feed on the rest of the way. Well, that after that it was just 1.
I feel like this is a dumb question, but how did you know it was the resident loon? You can tell the difference between?
I can tell it was the resident loon that didn't make it because this one lost their partner. And it's all deduction. I don't know for sure, but loon fights that are territorial, fight to the death, is generally males only.
Right.
The females will back down. And there was a fatality. And the 2 loons became 1 for the rest of the season. So it was the resident, probably the male.
So the killer didn't take over with the woman? It wasn't a fight for the woman, it was a fight for the lake?
I just thought about that yesterday. Eventually it may have stayed. I think she has to select it too. So a few days later, which this was, there were all these loons, stupid males I think, trying to show off, spinning around her, dancing. Eventually she had enough and went over by an island. And I was focusing on her, which is this one. But over here, there's like churning. It's like, fish? What is it? Well, I was already focused and framed. Instantly, that thing shot up, and she did that. That's how I got that picture. The other thing that goes with that is if the male is bad, the males pick the nest location. If they're bad, I think things don't last that way. The female could find a male. They're here for breeding. It could have been that loon was on the lake already for a long time. It was getting old. But it didn't look old. It put up a really rugged fight. So, no success for a few years. Then the next year we had chicks. Got better. So here is, that's on the nest. I like foggy mornings. So that was after an exchange. They get up and turn the eggs. I cropped quite a bit in on that one, and I was standing up in my little boat, which was shaky, with that huge lens. This one's the 2020 story. So when I got there, this loon was already on the lake with the chick, and I was shocked. I didn't know how. It was a little early that year, by about a week. So they went back, and there was still an egg, and they had already spent the night on the water. So when the chick can, it will generally leave the nest, but here it went up on the shore a bit. So later that day, I think it was around noon, the other chick went down the lake, and I was there when that happened. This day so this was a different year, 2019, and I don't give the loons a name because you don't want to get too attached to its nature. You can't control what happens. I named that one Lucky, and you'll see why. So the night before we had a huge thunderstorm. I think the lake went up a foot overnight. It's a small lake, and it drains through a weir. A lot of runoff. And I went out, and sure enough, here's that loon. That's probably one of the first minnows I've ever had. But the loons kept going back to where the nest was. Really sad, there was another egg hatching that was hatched open. The face of the loon was out. It dropped. So, yeah, tough. So that was, I think that's the poor loon that got hit by hail there. That is 2015, 2 chicks, one's climbing aboard. So they go on the backs, especially in the first week or so, for protection. But if they're getting cold, they'll go on the back too. It's for temperature regulation. It's safety and temperature regulation. So about 4 weeks in, one of those chicks disappeared. We don't know what happened. Now this was probably the 2020 year again. 2020, that was the evening of the first day. It was also that was also 2020. That was about a week old there. I do put these on Facebook, and I never can predict what'll happen. But that thing went crazy. 60,000 people. My son-in-law's friend, who's a meteorologist at a TV station, shared it, and he goes, "It's my father-in-law's photo." So this one did well. I don't know what year that was. Those are loons you get a little bigger for the back. They probably didn't do that many more days. That is the loon that I saw come off the nest. You know, it basically goes on the water for 10 minutes and got that photo. That was the same day. So every time I said, I've been with the loons enough, I don't want to stress them, and I'd start moseying away, I'd hear a boat show up. I stayed out there for about 5 hours because of this. I was right where the boats generally go to do the tubing that they were doing at the time. Because my boat was there, they stayed a little away. They would have been right where the were sitting. The babies like this, they can't die. So the parents would eventually have to. It's a bad combination. So this. I have a video where I was doing loon babysitting. I'll show you that later. It'll make sense when you see it. So sometimes they come really close. That again was 2015, 2020. I'll spill the suspense. Won't survive right here. Next one. The parents stretch their wings to dry off and to, I think, it helps keep them strong to fly. So the baby just happened to be there at the time. They're pretty big for being on the back, but they did it. That was the same day that I was shielding them on the water in a small boat. They got quiet, and that one just did a stretch with the sunset behind it. That was a good year. Yeah, when I see things, I research it. So loons, they don't sleep all night long. During the day, they'll catch little bursts of like 15 minutes, and at night they'll do about an hour here and there. So there they are, catching up with sleep. It's amazing how delicate they can be to feed with this. Yep. So as they age, eventually the babies have to build strength. This is really hard to catch because they don't give you any more. I've seen parents give way too big. That was almost way too big. Got it down. This one is when I was babysitting. You'll see the video with that same shot. They're a little older there. That's about a month old. Sunrise. I like that because it looks like the parents protecting them, but it just happened to be between. Sometimes the parents will pop up right next to you. There was a while on Facebook that my profile picture was me reflected in the eye of the loon.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty close. So a lot of these, so one of the behaviors is wagging their foot, and they don't know why for sure, but they think they regulate their temperature that way. I've heard it said that they're happy, but Nobody knows why. Adults do that too. This was in last year's calendar. That loon, that was probably its last ride ever. It's a little bit big again. There's another big meal. That was delivering a meal. Maybe it was the same meal actually as the last picture. Those were, I think that was the pair in 2015, and I think one didn't make it. They do that same kind of like hug to their parents to beg for food. So that's a common thing loons do. Probably about less than a month old after that baby. Here's where things get dangerous on camera equipment. I signed up, I have enough camera stuff, and I signed up for what they call Canon Professional Service, because the main reason I did it is they clean your sensor for free. If you're in that, if you buy what I think what they call Platinum, they even pay for the shipping each way. And the shipping of a really big lens will cost way more than the membership, one way. They also let you borrow equipment, and I borrowed a really nice lens. I could not have that lens. I know what they're doing. Yep, one of those. I wonder what draws me to loons, but I really like dedicated parents. That's really part of it. That was backlit lenses. There's a few hours in capturing this. That was my birthday. I had a 3M visitor from Japan out with me. And you got to read the light. It was sunset was soon, and I got between the loon and the sun. I did that. I was so close I couldn't get it all in. That's that one. So after probably about 6 weeks, they start losing their fur like down feathers, and they get much smoother after that. That one was a little scruffy, but that's just the way they are. All right, here, that is an adult doing the whale. So they don't open their mouth. I think most of the sound comes through their nose. The coolest thing, I never showed it to anybody until I just put it in. The next one is what the baby was doing. It was calling back. So you can see the progression. These are the juvenile feathers, which eventually they have all of that. And you'll see the parents start looking a little bit rough too as the season goes on. Now that one's a juvenile that's soon to be able to fly through the lake. That one has all its feathers. And I think, the standard loon looks stunning. Red eyes, black and white. But I think this thing is really beautiful. Just amazing. So here, as the season progresses, the loons start to molt. They're not sick or anything, they just start getting white. Eventually they'll start looking almost like what the juvenile looks like. I've never been south in the winter. Yeah,
Is that what the brownish, what?
yeah, that's a good question. So on that lake, there's tannins in the water. So they look, I actually didn't share those photos because it looked like they were sick or something, but it's natural. So, yeah. That is a juvenile practicing flapping its wings. At sunrise, you can see the mist. It's close to leaving. They start doing that a lot. Eventually they start doing, so that's one I decided I'm going to show for real life. So that one was doing wing flapping here. Its chest. At the end of the year, they do a lot of preening and feathers come off. So that's a juvenile that it left within a few days. It was getting pretty good at running and practice flying. Same there. You can see its fall. Okay, we're back to Lucky. So let's see. One Saturday I was there. I had just gotten there and I went out. And let's see. went out and there was nothing on the lake. I thought, oh, they left. Eventually it woke up, came from the shore. It made a few calls because its parents were gone. I think it was trying to call for long. It came right to me and looked at me, swam away and did some wing flaps. And I thought, oh cool, it's going to do a practice flight. Nope, flew away. It was gone. I could have spent a lot more time on this. There are threats to loons. So on some lakes, it's not that bad out here, thank goodness. You go to like central Minnesota, the shores loons can't use it. Boat impacts are one of the worst things for loons. Sinker, lead poisoning is a big problem. So they take gravel off the bottom of the lake. They have a gizzard like other birds. It helps them grind up that gigantic meal that they just ate. If they take a sinker, they're going to die. You got them on 2-3 weeks. Eagles are pretty bad, only if they surprise the parents or the babies, I think. But you'll see pictures of that fight. Eagles are risking their lives if they go after the loon. But when they're really little, snapping turtles, large fish. I once went out ahead of sunrise. I saw the adult of the pair on the lake and one was on the nest. They started doing the tremolo. I looked up, sure enough, an eagle's coming in. It was a juvenile eagle. They were all prepared, but it came around and it started going to the nest. And that parent went off the nest and reared up, and they went face to face. And the eagle got scared off. But if it stayed on the nest, it would get taken. Those parents were smart. Black flies can be really bad. From what I understand, they're not flies that bite us, but they torment loons. And they target around their eyes and really low to the point where they leave the nest too much and they get the eggs. Extreme weather like heat or heavy rains and hail, all of that they can kind of too. And I've seen all of this, pretty much all of this happen, except I'm not aware of lead poisoning in our lakes. So here is the babysitting episode where an intruder loon came in, and I didn't know it was there. And I wasn't positioned well in my boat. My body could only turn so far, and I was in agony. But here's the story that I compiled. So you can see me babysitting too, so it'll speak for itself. And a little adaptation. So there's our squeeze. Being fun. That's a hoot. All is still calm. They were surprised, you'll see. So they call that a penguin dance, and they're really upset if they do that. There was an intruder off to my right. I couldn't turn any farther, but you'll see it. So they got it to leave, but it didn't leave the lake. This all was pretty hard to capture because I wasn't set up for it. But the stupid loon landed again. Stupid because it was bothering the babies. Could have been. So there's the babies. The parents left, but they left the babies on my boat. So the babies lay flat, so they're harder to see from an eagle or predator. They came over. I even had a GoPro. I got him going by. So it reminds me of that up there. So there they are, right at the back of the boat. I think I had 15 minutes, right? I'm not going to leave when they're like that. I got some nice photos. You already saw one I took. That one happened then. Parents came back, making sure all was okay. And then they're on their way. Nothing happened. So they have to trust me in that bowl. Otherwise they would bring them to lily pads and they'll sit in there. This is kind of why still water is nicer, because you don't get as good pictures with the daylight bright like this. Yeah, they're making sure the coast is clear. They're looking everywhere. The problem is, when there's intruders, they do leave them alone, and their predators can get the babies. If an eagle flew over and saw those, they'd be gone. Okay, so here was the fight. I tried to, I didn't want to disrupt nature, and I went out and I had a pretty big lens, and I actually photographed from behind a tree, and it's brutal. What they'll do is grab each other by the beak, start slapping each other with their really strong wings, and they try to make each other tired. If they can, they'll climb on top of a loon and try to hold it underwater around it, and they struggle. Here they're jabbing at each other and trying to grab each other's beaks. Then they'll go under, and if they can, they'll come up and spear their goal. Maybe go back. What happened is, I have a picture of it. The loon that didn't survive got his eye poked out. And tried to get away, but the other one chased it and speared it. So that was, they're brutal. They're really strong. I wouldn't mess with them. So here is probably the saddest story. So brace yourself. It was 2014. After we had a successful nest, when we got a new male on the lake. I was thrilled. This was day one, and they were going right past our shore. And I went out, and I thought, I don't want to be here too long. I better go in. It was starting to rain. I went in the cabin, and I heard a ruckus outside. I went out with binoculars, and it's like, what's it doing out there? There's something floating. Boat head. So this little guy was alive minutes earlier. That's the male. That's what it looks like when they do the yodel. And it was with it for 2 hours. It was really bad. Yeah, here it was on the shore. Coasted to lily pads. So that was a bad deal. There were two, and I never saw the second one that evening, but I went out the next morning. It was there. By evening, an eagle got it. So 2014 was a short season. That's that. So the next year was 2015. One of my banner years, 15 and 20, because there were 2 loons that made it through those years. Deja vu. I was out again a year later in 2015. They were going past our place, going around a point where it narrows, and boats in the evening go through back and forth. And it's just like an ocean, waves through there. I thought, oh, I've been with them long enough, I better go in. It's like, what the heck am I doing? I'm going to go with them this time. And I rode around the point. My boat was like just rocking. And I thought, wow, I could get hit, but the loons came right to me. And I made it around. And I think I learned the boat safe. But enough is enough. We put out signs that we made, just hand painted, and every year they ask for them. We have chicks now. And the Lake Association president takes a note I write when chicks are there and sends it to the lake. And this year, I couldn't be there on the 4th of July weekend. And I called a neighbor to watch on them. And by the end of the weekend, he said, I think they're watching for them. It works. Just from this stuff. Black flies are terrible. That year it failed. They couldn't take it. So we didn't have chicks that year. This was the lucky and unlucky. That one was pretty rough. Heavy rains. So, this takes me to a newer development on the gun front. My view on it is there's enough ways naturally that loons struggle. We got to work on the human things. So this year we started kind of an experiment at requesting help to monitor the loons in the area. We've coordinated with Dr. Walter Piper to make sure we're collecting what he would like us to collect. And he's thrilled because this is an area that's way different from what he's done in Wisconsin and also near Brainerd. Those lakes are not as clear. This is more wilderness. A lot of it's different. That actually was the day after I saw it on Sea Lion. That was from my yard. But then I began monitoring at that point because there were loons to monitor. So, let's see the next slide. So these are the goals to kind of we're just trying to see if loons are successful breeding, what can cause it, and if there's things we can do to prevent it. That's why we're doing it. We just asked, this is citizen science. We're not doing DNA, we're not collecting, dropping samples and analyzing or anything like that. We're just watching and learning. And we've learned there's some lakes that are really bad for lures. We got to fix that.
For lures?
Yeah, so.
What does that mean? There's a lot of lures in the lake?
Yeah, and so if someone breaks their lure off and just leaves it, loons might think it's bait or food, or they can get tangled in the line.
How do you know a lake is bad for lures?
Because there's a lot there, loons get entangled and die.
So you see a loon that's in
Oh
there?
yeah, we've had them this year, in recent years.
Otherwise, it would be hard to see. I mean, I don't know if our lake's bad for loons or
Oh.
bad for lures or not.
Well, your clue is loons get injured and
See
die.
them.
That's it. Every lake's gonna have some of that. I pull them out, but they look like the food of loons. That's part of the problem. Next slide. We have co-chair would be me. Mona Hansen is. All I gotta say is there's people that are very passionate about loons. I'm one of them. They'll have this idea. He called me in April. I didn't say no, and we're talking about it now. But it's huge. The potential is staggering, honestly. Next one. So, Ellis Sherman wrote a little description of that. Basically, loons are declining. We want to know why. There's a guy that takes loon photos, and Chik-Wauk Bonnie sent out a note. And a week later, we had half the lakes covered.
Are there any statistics on total population of loons by year?
They say it's pretty steady,
Is it?
but it's declining. Dr. Piper is seeing it in Wisconsin, and it's
How would you access that? Is that like University of Minnesota or?
He has a website and he posts blogs, which are really good.
Okay, thank you.
I should remember it. It might be just loon.org.
Okay.
Just if you do a search on Google for Dr. Piper, Walter Piper, you'll find it. It's the latest research there is. They basically banned loons so that we're not guessing if it's the male or if it's the pair that did return, they know. And they're declining. Another thing that happens is they're not coming back. So when juveniles fledge, they'll go generally to the Gulf Coast. And they'll stay for 2 to 5 years until their biology is ready to breed. And then they come back. They're not coming back as often. So something's happening everywhere. Now this is out of date. We're continually getting add-ons to this. People love loons around here. But they should have this everywhere. If you get people doing this, loons will do better. That's all it takes. This is part of the forum where we guided people on what to collect for behavior. Take a picture of this. If you go to these links, the information is spectacular. Just those three there, if you spend time on those, we kind of know as much as I'm talking about right now. And the things we guided people wasn't just, oh, there were 5 loons. But pay attention, like, are there boats nearby? Was there a huge storm the night before and you go look and the nest is empty? You start to figure out things then. Well, the Chik-Wauk platform worked again. I just learned we're down to 1 juvenile, which is the way. Actually, statistically, 1 of 2 usually makes it. And not every nest is successful, so a lot can go wrong. But to have half the lakes covered in a week, people out here care. I think there's something like 10 to 15 chicks that we know of, but on a lake like Seagull, we have no idea because it's huge. I only go to the part where I can get to the boat. So it's probably more.
Why do they hatch at different, like the Chik-Wauk ones are so early?
Oh.
And
It kind of just depends. If the ice is out sooner, which I think happens out in that little bay, they'll start sooner.
Ours were trying to nest on a platform, and they kept trying to nest in. It was down in the water, and so they had to go to nest 2. So they're behind the Chik-Wauk ones because they couldn't find the nesting spot that they wanted, I guess.
And I don't know the full answer because that little lake that I have gotten most of these photos from, that ice is out before some of the ones here, but they generally don't hatch until the day ahead of 4th of July weekend, which is the absolute worst. They could go sooner, and sometimes they have that now. See, we're almost done. Next one. This, I said considering all of these, it's changing fast. There's a lot happening. So we're continually picking up more volunteers. All it takes is to ask. People want to do it. We've pretty much got almost the whole government covered now. We're down to maybe a couple lakes that aren't. We're going to have training on how to rescue loons, like if they're entangled in lures, or sometimes if they have lead poisoning, they'll go to shore. And if you catch them soon enough, they can be treated. Maybe. Let's see. That's it. So in September, I'm at Split Rock Lighthouse as the featured artist. Someone here prodded me 2 years in a row, and I finally did it, and I'm there now. So I'm really busy getting ready for that. Thank you, Chris. And then we're almost done. Next slide.
How many of your photos there will be loons?
5 or 6 or 7. I can look afterwards and show you my exhibit on my phone. But you got any questions?
You know, it seems to me like I'm seeing more loons on metro lakes these days. Like you never see them on dental lakes 20, 30 years ago. Now you see them on the name of Constant and Weaver Lake.
Yeah, I don't know if they nest though.
I mean, they're hanging around all summer.
I'm not sure what that means. That might be non-breeders. I don't know. They'll definitely stop there in the spring because they'll build up there because
I see several of them in the spring.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to research that.
So like if you just see a single loon, you know, like on the lake, is that one of those deals where maybe the male was killed?
It can be anything. So one option is that when the juveniles fledge and they go to the Gulf Coast or near there, they generally come back close to where they were, their lake. But they can't be back on the parents' lake. The parents will shoot them off. So they go to a nearby lake. They won't be successful right away. There's a lot of what they call floaters that aren't native parents. So it could be that.
And like the size of the lake, is there only one pair?
No,
of loons
that's
per
a good question. So the lake, right, the little lake, that can only handle one pair. And and they defend it to the death if they have to. Seagull could have, it's so big with so many bays, it could have 10 pairs probably.
Do they huddle up in the fall?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep, that's common. That generally, in the fall, they kind of lose some of their territorialness. But I just read yesterday, I kind of tried to relearn, so I keep the same proper stuff even today. Well, just about 2 weeks ago, I was back on that lake. It is that one. The pair was there, the parents were there. Out of the blue, 2 pairs of intruders showed up. I didn't even see the babies disappear. They were so fast, I didn't know where they went. The parents left and hung out with the 2 intruders like they were buddies. They didn't want the baby. If intruders do come face to face with chicks, the male can kill them because it wants to boost its own chances, and it happens. So they have to hide. Eventually, one of the parents even left with the loons, with this guy. They came back, and they weren't sure where the chicks went. They were nearby doing the whale call. Eventually, the chicks come popping out, and nothing happened. All was good again. The whole time, though, they were in more danger. That's just the way it works.
Can you tell the difference between loons?
Not really.
I mean, is there any, so like you're in a lake, you have a pair, you don't know if it's the, one's over here, one's on another bay, you don't know which one is which.
You have no idea, unless you see the band. If they're side by side, usually the smaller one is the female. That's all you can do.
Have you noticed anything, any changes with all the smoke that's been in the air this year?
Well, I worry about the chicks breathing that nonstop. That's one change for me. I think that otherwise, I think they're okay. It's probably adding pollutants to the water.
Yeah. I had wondered about their call at one time. I was watching a pair and it was so thick, the smoke that day. And it was almost like they were on the nest, but it was almost as if they were panicked. And the mate just didn't come back for so long. And I was wondering if it had anything to do with the smoke, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know if the smoke could do that. If they leave a long time, they might do it if it's warmer outside because the egg can survive longer. That's my first, because I heard of the Chik-Wauk, they left it for 12 hours, but it was pretty warm that.
Yeah, it was hot.
It was 16 hours.
16 hours?
They were off the nest for 16
I
hours.
checked them off. And then I
So
hear
did
that
I.
they hatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't call that good parenting.
No. It was so hot that day. It was in the 90s that day.
Yeah. So they know, I think. I got one more. I think I have a bonus clip. Man, this is like going out with me, and Jody was the videographer here. And I'll sit down and watch it myself, because I'm done. This was the pair, the 2020 pair again. This was the same day. I shielded them for 5 hours. There are 2 chicks on the back. They can hide. It's under the wing. That's me taking pictures. So Jody always tries to get nice videos, and next thing you know, it can't. But it's so amazing, just sitting there quiet with them. So they did a hoot. That was the parent, his minnow. Very delicate. I think the baby took a little while to wake up. Grab it. Yep. And you can't top this one.
No.
And so they call that peering. It's looking for potential predators and intruders and also more fish. So that's it.
Thank you all.